We are talking about the news that broke, the news that shocked everybody. I don't know where you were at when you saw the headline of Myles Garrett request a trade from the Cleveland Browns, but I'm sure everybody in KBN Nation, in Packer Nation, all had the same reaction. All had the same reaction to saying, oh my goodness, the time is now. Now, when we look at this, Bradley, why should the Green Bay Packers, in your perspective, from your mind, be all in on going to get Myles Garrett?
Well, the time is now for the Green Bay Packers. Kyle, you said it. When the Packers won Super Bowl 31 and when they won Super Bowl 45, they had game-breaking, major, seismic defensive personnel additions, right? And Reggie White and Charles Woodson. And those guys set the tone and they changed the entire landscape of the defense. It thrust them from being pretty good defenses. Darn this microphone.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
How do you sit here every day?
Man, listen, I gotta be patient.
For those that are listening on the radio, Kyle's sitting in Ben's spots. I'm sitting in Kyle's spot because there's more space and it's nicer. But this darn microphone is frustrating. Just as I was getting going, Reggie White and Charles Woodson, they took pretty good to solid defenses to great, to excellent, to elite. Does that sound familiar? The Packers right now, they're a good defense. They're top 5 or top 10 in a handful of categories, and they're not necessarily like making anyone afraid, but they're quality, they're solid, they're good. You add Myles Garrett, who's an all-pro, reigning Defensive Player of the Year, finalist for Defensive Player of the Year this year, a guy that is literally all-pro elite in his prime still. A guy like this almost never comes available. You add him to your defense, the Green Bay Packer defense automatically overnight in the snap of a fingers becomes a top 3 defense in the NFL. That sounds like a defense that is championship caliber. You're talking about playmakers at every level. Myles Garrett in the pass rush, Edgerrin Cooper in linebackers, Xavier McKinney in the secondary. You have a defense led by Jeff Hafley that schematically should improve, continue to improve, and Myles Garrett is the finishing touch to make this a championship defense. And here's the thing. I don't care almost what the Packers pay for it. There's a certain, crazy limit, but generally speaking, if this is the only move the Packers do all offseason, give up a haul for Myles Garrett, that's all they do all offseason, it is automatically a successful offseason.
Wow.
A+ across the board, even if it's 2 first-round draft picks, a third-rounder, a player, whatever it is, automatically a successful offseason, A+ for the Green Bay Packers. And here's the other thing. Recently, we've been discussing the Packers. Do they care more about relevance, consistency, or going all in for a championship? If the Packers traded their first-round draft pick in a year where Green Bay hosts the draft to where you could not take the stage in Green Bay and announce a first-round draft pick, but instead use that draft pick to go get Myles Garrett, that would prove to me once and for all that the Packers are indeed more interested in championships, more interested in immediate winning than they are about the moment, the showcase, relevancy, and just being in there. That would be a true sacrifice. The Packers hosting the draft, maybe the biggest singular NFL event outside of a game, because they're never going to get a Super Bowl unless they have the retractable dome that was on here, Brad, out. They're never going to
get a Super Bowl.
So if the Packers are willing to sacrifice that and say, us winning a championship is more important than that Thursday night first-round pick when it's in the beautiful city of Green Bay, Wisconsin, it'll finally prove to me that the Packers truly are more interested in championships than consistency and relevance.
Brad is basically saying, right here on Kyle, Bruss, and Norman, that the Packers have to make this move. And if they make this move, right, you're saying that the rest of the offseason doesn't matter. Regardless of whatever they do in this offseason, whether they sign a receiver or whether or not they find another corner or whether they draft well in this draft, it is all about Myles Garrett. That's what it comes down to.
If they get Myles Garrett is a Green Bay Packer in 2025. The rest of this offseason is automatically an A+.
Yeah, see, I think that's easy, right? I think this is completely easy. When you're thinking about Myles Garrett, of course you should go get Myles Garrett. It will be malfeasance on the behalf of the Green Bay Packers organization and also Goody if they do not invest and go try to get Myles Garrett. It is not often where a player of his caliber in the NFL is saying, hey, I am requesting a trade. I want to get out of here. I want to find a better situation. So there should be no world that we live in that Goody is not making the phone call and being willing to get into a war, a trade war, in order to get Myles Garrett. Because as you said, Brad, he absolutely changes this defense. He is not a player that is just a plus player. He's just not a really high quality player. He's not even just a all-pro player. Dude is a future Hall of Famer who is still in his prime, who is coming off back-to-back multiple sack years. He had 14 sacks this past season. Like Brad said as well, he was a defensive MVP in the past as well. And so you must not only explore, but be all in. Goody said something earlier this offseason. He had his end of the year press conference, Brad. And one of the things that he talked about is he said sense of urgency. He says everybody around here, the players need to have more of a sense of urgency. Now, this is an opportunity for Goody to walk it like he talks it and prove that he's more than just telling other guys to have a sense of urgency, but also that is on him as well. You have a chance to get a generational talent on the defensive side of the football. There are not a lot of football teams that have a defensive game record and an offensive quarterback like Jordan Love, who we believe can be elite. Not a lot of teams have that. That is the difference between losing in Philadelphia in the wild card round or playing in an NFC championship game, right? Like, he gives you more wins. That might be the difference of you having to be a 7 seed or a 6 seed or a 5 seed going on the road, or you actually having a pass rush, which allows for you to maybe get a 1, 2, or 3 seed or something like that, where you actually get to host a playoff game. This is a guy that can catapult this Green Bay Packer franchise into the conversation of being a Super Bowl contending player. And that's why I am officially here to announce, Brad, I'm announcing my official campaign. A Bring Myles Garrett to Green Bay campaign. It officially starts today.
Hear, 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 hear.
Hear, hear. Everything that we do, we need to make sure that we tag Myles Garrett about how beautiful and great it is in this great state of Wisconsin and why he will find his way to a Lombardi trophy if he were to come here. But I'm telling you this right now. If the Packers let this slip out of their hand, there is literally nothing. A first-round pick, you're talking about, because they are hosting the draft. Who cares they're hosting the draft? Do you know who they drafted? Hail to the Chief. Hail to the Chief, Myles Garrett. He can have everything. He can have anything and give him anything and everything. But when you think about first-round draft picks, this is when Goody, to me, Brad, he has to be realistic, right? Mm-hmm. Like, at this point, you need to say, hey, I can cook during the draft. I'm good, right? Look at what I did in 2023 and 2024, right? 2022. I did good, right? You did good after the first round. So this is where you have to have that self-evaluation and say, I really want to have a first-round pick, but when I look at a guy like Rashawn Gary, he hasn't lived up to what we thought he would. A Darnell Savage isn't on the roster. Eric Stokes probably shouldn't be on the roster. A Quay Walker still hasn't quite gotten there yet. Devontae Wyatt, you're still waiting. Lucas Van Ness has been outperformed by guys of lesser or a lower draft slot. Jordan Morgan was out all last year. You have not hit a superstar. If you can trade 2 first-round picks or whatever you got to do to hit a superstar, you do it, Brad. You do it.
Yeah, Goody is best in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds. That's where he finds the guys that are his best players. And, by the way, those are the guys that had the cheapest contracts over their rookie contract. So it's easier for them to outperform their cap number. When I look at Myles Garrett, Goody has put 3 first-round draft picks in the D-line, several second and even a 3rd contract, and even all this money toward the cap space. And he has nobody that's even in the same universe as Myles Garrett. Not only has Myles Garrett been all-pro 6 times, he actually got MVP votes last year. Like league MVP votes, not defensive player. He was defensive player of the year, but he was 10th in voting for the actual MVP award. So this is a guy that you could draft in the 1st round and take a D-end 10 years in a row. And you might never get a Myles Garrett.
Never.
You probably won't ever get a Myles Garrett.
No, not probably. Goody will never draft a Myles Garrett type player. The Packers aren't going to be drafting low enough in the draft.
That's true.
Or high enough, however you want to say it. They're not going to be drafting the top 5 enough in the draft. And Goody just sucks at evaluating high-end talent.
Yeah, and when it comes to this Super Bowl window, because we have to talk about what Rob Domofsky told our own program, that, Goody stepped on the podium and said that it's time that they start competing for championships. And Rob
use his own words against them.
That's right. And Rob Domofsky says his translation of that is their Super Bowl window is wide open. The next 2 years is when they have to strike gold and they have to get that elusive Super Bowl appearance and victory, because at that point, the roster starts to change and turn over in such a way that you need to go back to the drawing board and do it all over again. Jordan Love's going to be 27 and 28 over the next 2 years. Prime years to win a Super Bowl. Even say, let's say 3 years. 27, 28, 29, prime years for Jordan Love to win a Super Bowl. You have to have somebody like Myles Garrett. I am willing to give up potential future victories 5, 6, 7 years out, if that's what it takes for the next 2 to 3 years for the Packers to be great and try to win a Super Bowl.
But what you're talking about, and we're talking about Myles Garrett has requested a trade from Cleveland and the Green Bay Packers. We're asking you, KB and Nation, should the Green Bay Packers go all in to get Myles Garrett? We have the poll up on Twitter X. We also have the poll up on YouTube. That's ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube. Should the Packers go all in order to get Myles Garrett right here to Green Bay? I'm looking at the poll and I'm disappointed because it's only 74% yes. I'm trying to figure out
26%.
Something wrong with him. Something's 100% wrong with him. But 800-990-3776. That's the Carbless Talking text line. Less is more. We want you to chime in on this conversation. Do you believe the Green Bay Packers should go all in when getting Myles Garrett? And the reason why I say you have to, and you can't be concerned with these draft picks, is because draft picks are only potential. A lot of these draft picks of where the Green Bay Packers are drafting, they're going to take time to develop. We haven't had an instant impact type rookie from the first round in many years, right? We haven't had a guy that takes time to develop. And as you just talked about, Brad, the Packers are in this window where a 3 to 5 year plan that Goody has laid out. There is no better way than to make sure you expedite that plan and you ensure that you have a legitimate shot of winning a Super Bowl by getting a guy like this. He has 102.5 sacks so far in his career, and he is not slowing down. Imagine this. Myles Garrett comes here. All of a sudden now, Rashawn Gary becomes that much better. Kenny Clark becomes that much better. Kingsley Enagbare becomes that much better. Maybe Lucas Van Ness learns something from Myles Garrett where they get better as well, because as you know, Brad, though when punters, you don't have multiple punters on the team, but you know from other guys, when you have super talented guys around you, or we see with Aaron Rodgers, or from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, being able to learn from a guy who is a master at what he does, that can enhance you as well and make you that much better.
Yeah, and sometimes you need that. A coach can help you, teach form and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes you need to see it. Sometimes you need to see another star player actually do it with his own body and with his own mind. And this is what I watch when I look for film. This is how I attack a guy like this. These are my hand motions. These are my footwork. Sometimes you need to see it as a young player. And let's not forget what this does for the rest of those guys, right? Kenny Clark has been almost ineffective within the last couple of years, right? Part of that reason is because he's probably getting double teamed most of the time. If Myles Garrett is on your defensive line, if he's single teamed, he will get 30 sacks. He's going to gobble you up nonstop. So you have to double team him. What does that mean? That means that everybody else is going to be at least single teamed at most. So you're talking about other guys flourishing, other guys opening up. It'll allow not only Myles Garrett to be an absolute stud, which is what he is, but it'll be the best opportunity for these guys that are ranging from a bust to like Lucas Van Ness to guys that are, either were or are somewhat legitimate, like Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, to be at their best as well. A strong pass rush, an effective pass rush, a top 3 pass rush in the NFL can cover so many blemishes. If they get Myles Garrett, I'm less concerned about finding a cornerback one. Like, is Jair on the roster? Is he not? Did the Packers go draft one? Did they go acquire one? I'm less concerned about that because no quarterback, if you have Myles Garrett plus our current cast, no cornerback's going to have more than 2.5 seconds to throw the football. So, to me, it's a no-brainer. The Packers want a championship. You got to go get Myles Garrett because a first-round draft pick in 2026, even 2025, Kyle, as you were saying, they will likely not be ready to be main contributors to a Super Bowl team. They just won't be ready. It takes time. Not only that, look at the team that Goody has built without hitting on first-round draft picks. He's proven he can do it.
My gosh. Go ahead.
It's the thing. It's not hitting on first rounders that has kept them from it. You can help cure that right now with Myles Garrett.
It is crazy what we got coming through the talking text line. There are some people who are saying no. some people saying no to going to get Myles Garrett.
Tell me why.
And I find that so interesting that people would say no. 800-990-3776. Chef Ed is actually saying hell no. The defense is on an upswing under Hafley. For all that money, go and get you a number one wide receiver or a good cornerback. I cannot believe him, but I guess that is speaking for, I believe, is probably, let's see where the poll is at, but for the 25% of people that actually believe that the Packers shouldn't go all in for Myles Garrett. It just does not make sense to me. It does not make sense to me.
If you're an NFL GM, if we were to poll all the GMs of the NFL, Goody included, and they had if all the rosters started over, right? No one's on any team. You would first draft and establish a quarterback, right?
Yep.
That's obvious. That's clear. The next position would be an edge rusher. Like, that is the next most important position because you got to get quarterback right, and you have to disrupt the other quarterback. So that would be the thing. So if quarterback is easily far and beyond the number one most important position on any given football team, next most important, arguably, but almost assuredly, is edge rusher.
800-990-3776. That's the Carbless Talking text line. We are asking you, should the Packers go all in to get Myles Garrett? I thought that everybody would be 100% all in, but from some of your responses on YouTube, that is ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube and ESPN Madison on YouTube, it is not 100% yes. This is crazy. This is ludicrous. I don't mean to be disrespectful, KBN Nation, but what in the hell are you drinking this morning by thinking the Packers shouldn't go all in to get a game changer? 800-990-3776. That is the Carbless Talking test line. List is more. I see your calls. I see your texts. I see you all at ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube and ESPN Madison on YouTube. We will get to you after this. But again, do you believe the Packers should go all in to get Myles Garrett this offseason? 800-990-3776. That is the Carbless Talking text line. And this is Kyle Bruston Nortman.
This is Kyle Bruston Norton.